Let me first start with the obligatory statement from the governor. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Summer Residence Advisory Committee is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410, conference ID 320-575-620#, or they can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link provided in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So welcome to the 78th Chatham Summer Town Meeting hosted by the Summer Residence Advisory Committee. My name is Jeff Spalter, and this year I'm the chair of the committee and excited to be here tonight. It's a great opportunity for members of the community to hear from and engage with our town leaders, and for us to share the work that we've done on issues that we believe are important to you and the town. Before going any further, though, I'd like to ask the SRAC members to introduce themselves. So I can start with Ron.
So good evening, I'm Ron Manderscheid. I'm a two-year member of the SRAC committee. I live in Potomac, Maryland, and have had a house in Chatham for 30 years with my family. We love it here.
My name is Mike Waters. I've been on SRAC for about 10 years. I've have a home in Gladden Lane, which I've owned for 20 years, and I live in New York City with my wife, who's in the audience.
I'm Tom Garvey. Live in Dallas in the off-season and here now. Like Ron, this is the second year that I've been part of this committee.
Good evening. My name is Joel Rotner. I'm from West Hartford, Connecticut. We've had a home in Chatham since 1999, and Mike and I have shared our good times on this committee for several years.
My name is Tina Mead. I'm from Washington, D.C. I have been coming to Chatham for 50-odd years with my husband. We've owned a house for 24 years now, and I've been on SRAC for 8 years.
And I'm Jeff Spalter. We've had a home in Chatham here for about a dozen years, and this is my third year on the committee, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great experience to meet so many folks.
Good evening. I'm Jamie Meehan. I'm from Parkland, Florida, which is near Fort Lauderdale. Been on SRAC for about 8 years or so. Live in Chatham near Agway. Thank you.
My name is Don Drinkwater. I'm from Carlisle, Massachusetts.
Oh, we got it. Touch the.
Second house in Chatham.
Don, hit the button.
I'm sorry. Let's try it again. Don Drinkwater from Carlisle, Massachusetts. So I'm in my second house in Chatham. We had a house back in 2000 and built this 3 years ago. This is my first year on this committee, and it's been very interesting.
My name is Stuart Green. I've been a 25-year summer resident in Chatham. I live in Chestnut Hill for the other 8 months. This is my third year on the committee, and I'm vice chair. Thank you.
And we have 4 members who aren't here this evening. Phil Richardson, Roger Donald, Jeannie Allen, and Tracy Golden. Unfortunately, couldn't be with us this evening. So next we'll go to the agenda. Mark, can we go to the agenda? Thank you. And just before we cover that material, though, we thought we should start by thanking the town, especially the town manager, Jill Goldsmith, and her team, for taking the time to meet with us and to provide some amazing support. And quite frankly, without Kathy Lewis and Shannon Neely, we'd be in big trouble. And special thanks to Mark Van Bork for helping us out tonight. So thank you all very much. So now let's look at the agenda for the evening. Select Board Chair Mike Shell, who's also our liaison, will make some opening remarks. Then we'll turn it over to Jill, and she'll share some town highlights. After Jill, I'll provide an overview of the SRAC and the work that we've done. And then we'll hit the sewer project, which is the key topic for the night, and we'll end with Q&As. We have the room until 9 o'clock. Hopefully that'll be enough time to respond to all of your questions. There are index cards available on your seats in the back of the room for those who would like to submit a question, or you can raise your hand later in the evening and we'll get you a microphone or the podium. If we don't get to your question, please use the standard town protocol, which I think is to email the town staff or Jill, depending on the issue. So let's briefly talk about the SRAC, who we are and what we do. As many of you know, the summer residents have been meeting for almost 80 years to discuss issues of common concern and engage with town officials. The non-voting Taxpayers Advisory Committee, which has since been named the Summer Residents Advisory Committee, was formed in 1996 with a stated mission to do 4 things: to give the summer residents a voice, to give the Select Board the benefit of information and views, to give fresh outlooks to the town, and to take a position and make a case for or against town matters. And that's what this wonderful group of volunteers has been doing. There are 13 of us with a wide range of backgrounds: lawyers, finance and accounting, PhDs, teachers, wealth management, to name just a few. We meet every Friday during the summer from June through August to address issues that are important to the town and impactful to the summer residents. This year, we actually met remotely in April to identify the top issues that we wanted to address. And because we can continue to meet remotely, we plan to meet throughout the year. Did you all know that? And you all are more than welcome to join the meetings in person or remotely. We'd love to have your input, and you really get some great information and some perspective that a lot of us have never had before. So with that, let's invite Select Board Chair Mike Shell to welcome everyone.
So the microphone is on. Thank you. Let me start by saying that my wife and I and our family, well, not our whole family because they weren't some of them here in the beginning, but for more than 30 years we were summer/seasonal renters, residents of Chatham, and we've been here every summer since I think it's the summer of 1979. So we have a great appreciation for the town of Chatham, but we also have an appreciation for what you're doing. I wish I could say that I was active at the time that we were in that status, but I can't. So I'm very admiring of your commitment. Thanks for the opportunity to give you a brief overview of the past year in Chatham. I'm framing it as August 23 to August 24 because that's kind of the summer annual meeting periodicity, and also a bird's eye view of the next few years. And I want to do all of that without preempting the other Chatham folks here that you're going to be hearing from, principally, I think, Jill. I'll start with housing. That's not necessarily the first chronologically, but arguably the first of the biggest challenges that Chatham faces. The first of this year's Select Board Goals and Objectives recites, and I'm quoting, "Over the next 5 years, 200 units of affordable, attainable workforce housing will be added around Chatham." We've designated a developer for approximately 90 units of affordable and attainable rental housing at 2 sites, 1533 Main Street, which is just east of Dunkin' Donuts, and on Meeting House Road, just across from Our Lady of Grace Catholic Church. The Select Board has begun discussions regarding how to proceed with developing requests for proposals for the properties on Stepping Stones Road, just south of the middle school, and at 127 Old Harbor Road, adjacent to the elementary school. Although these projects fall within the legal jurisdiction of the Select Board, I'm hopeful that the Affordable Housing Trust Board will be included in those discussions. I'm also mindful that the Select Board's goals and objectives include an intention to issue RFPs on all 4 town-owned properties, including those 2 this calendar year. Staying with housing for just 1 minute more, earlier this summer, the state approved Chatham's Home Rule petition seeking authorization to dedicate 1% of our local room occupancy tax to financing attainable housing in Chatham and 1% to Chatham's elementary school. I'm reliably informed that we can anticipate approximately $1 million annually for attainable housing from that source, and obviously a similar amount for the Chatham Elementary School. There are other housing-focused initiatives around town that should contribute to our progress in this area. I note particularly the Planning Board's West Chatham Neighborhood Zoning Review and expected comprehensive amendment for that section of town. As the principal administrator of our short-term rental regulation, the Board of Health is working to implement that program instituted last year. There's a lot more, but let me turn to a couple of other topics. As you might have noticed, the Eldridge Garage Park and Parking Facility at the east end of town was completed and opened this summer. I think it is a beautiful reconstitution of that development opportunity, but I would be remiss not to acknowledge and cheer its addition of some 50 or more parking spaces in our main business district. In that vein, I also want to note that the Traffic Safety Committee continues its review and consideration of possible comprehensive approaches to addressing Chatham's never-ending struggle with parking, especially in the summer months. You probably have noticed that. We have several major capital projects, which in my view encompass important contribution opportunities for the quality of our community life and the responsiveness of our infrastructure to the needs of everyone, full-time and seasonal residents. Among others, let me just mention the Bridge Street project, which is part of the larger series of improvements planned for waterfront infrastructure, completion of the makeover of the transfer station, and bringing the Center for Active Living up to a standard and a capacity that is realistically capable of addressing the needs of our elder residents. The Bridge Street project represents an investment in expanding access to the waterfront for the public, as well as support for shell fishing, which is a major contributor to Chatham's blue economy. The transfer station upgrade responds to the need for decent working conditions, consideration for the neighbors of the transfer station, and improving the safety and efficiency of operations there. Finally, there is the Center for Active Living. We've had several town meeting attempts to authorize a new facility, all unfortunately unsuccessful. Presently, we are considering how we might make the existing facility on Stony Hill Road a serviceable, welcoming, and effective home for our COA activities. More to come on that subject, but I urge you to visit and have a look at the 50-year timeline telling the story of the COA's dedication to our elder citizens. Finally, I've read the, I don't know, it's a SRAC or SRAC, but whichever it is, the SRAC memorandum and recommendation to the Select Board and the town concerning sewer hookups and specifically grinder pumps. It is, of course, premature for me to say anything about the conclusion. However, I do want to say the quality of the diligence and research, as well as the clarity of the reasoning and explanation of the findings, are superlative. I mention that first simply because it's true. However, I also mention it because it is reflective of the talent, experience, capabilities, and human resources residing in our summer/seasonal Chatham community members, many of you who are here tonight. We appreciate the dedication invested in that task. We also recognize the resources residing in the summer and seasonal segment of the Chatham community. Indeed, let me conclude by saying that I hope you will continue your interest, your engagement, and your contributions to our combined welfare and prosperity. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, please welcome our town manager, Jill Goldsmith, to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, summer residents. And I'm Jill Goldsmith, your town manager. And I wanted to also welcome the remaining members of the select board here with us. We have, as I'm looking here, Jeff Dykens and Corey Metters. Shireen Davis is in person with us, and Dean DeCastro is online, so they're with us tonight, as well as our leadership team of department heads. They always tend to sit in the back and happy to give up a seat if someone needs it, but they're right here to answer any questions as we move on. So tonight I want to do a brief overview of goals and objectives, some of the financial perspectives that we've approved and moving forward. But first, I wanted to welcome you as our summer residents. So you are now the 58th percentile of residents according to population. And it's interesting, just 7 years ago, you were the 62% of our overall population. So congratulations. We're getting more voters, and year-round residents are always happy with that, but we certainly appreciate our seasonal and summer residents. Some of you probably know this, but our form of government in Massachusetts is a little different than everywhere else. But in Chatham, we have, of course, the Chatham voters as the people who are the legislative body and direct us, including the elected officials. And that's the select board, who I just announced tonight, and they are elected. And then they appoint me as the town manager, and then I appoint all of our 152 employees that we have at this time. Select Board Chair Mike had mentioned our select board goals and objectives. And this year we did a different approach, and we were looking at where we want to be in 2030. And so here's the vision statement that the board had adopted back in January of 2024. And to do so, they utilized SMART goals that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And then the board identified buckets that we called of areas of priorities. So in this slide, we have year-round housing, educational excellence, foster a vibrant and sustainable local economy, environmental conservation, coastal resiliency, natural resources, water management, and respond effectively to the needs of a diverse, welcoming, and livable community. FY25 is this current fiscal year that began on July 1st, but the work to get here took almost 7 months of preparation. And we start our preparation with budget summits, and we look back a few years, we look forward, but what's really interesting are the participants to the budget summit. So it's a public meeting, the public's welcome to participate remotely or in person, and the participants are the select board, members of the finance committee, as well as our regional school district representatives. And there we look at what challenges we might have had, what opportunities in the prior year, and it sets the tone for the budget directive that I ultimately give in November. From there, we work on the select board value or mission statement and goals and objectives. That's what you just saw from January. And then we look at our capital program, a capital improvement program, and prioritization meetings. So sometimes we have a separate meeting just for a capital item. We did that for the transfer station, for the belt filter press that was approved in 2023, and more recently with 90 Bridge Street and the waterfront projects. From there, I present an operating and capital budget, and the select board and the finance committee, through public meetings, again, virtual and in person, review it from January through April 2024. And then this year we had our annual town meeting on May 13th. And town meeting is unfortunately, there's no absentee ballots for that, you have to actually be in person. But with that, we make it available as soon as possible, the recording of it, as well as a scorecard to note what items passed and what the vote is. And as always, we put the full town meeting warrant on the town's website, and you can find all this information on the website under Town Meeting Central. More recent good news about our town finances is Standard & Poor's Global Bond Rating has rated the town AAA. That's the highest rating that a town, a municipality can have, and we've had that rating since 2008. And part of it, oops. Well, here's my whole presentation. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get up. Part of the AAA bond rating is with AAA and a stable outlook. It actually makes it less expensive for the town to borrow for our capital projects. And so the most recent bond solicitation that we had was about $9.5 million, and we received a true interest rate of 3.38%. And because of that, we were able to use some of the bond premium proceeds to buy down the debt. So it's all good news. And the bond rating agencies love our conservative budgeting and financial planning, our cybersecurity efforts, coastal resiliency planning efforts, and all contributed to our AAA bond rating. The FY25 budget was called an all-encompassing budget to chart Chatham's future. It's really important that the select board goals are reflected in the budget, and the budget that was approved this year and in prior years has been reflective of servicing the needs of all community members. Our financial health is very strong. Our revenues are strong, especially our collection of local receipts, which helps offset the tax rate, the taxes, and also staff has been very successful with grants. Our operating budget that was approved was a little more than $40 million, up 5.24% of an increase from the prior year. And some of that relates to some of our long-term contracts were expiring, so it's a new contract year for where we take our solid waste, as well as our water and sewer operations that we contract out with a provider. Our school assessment was a minor increase at $10,884,000, and that we do now contribute directly for the Chatham Elementary School operations. So we're in a regional school district with the town of Harwich, and each town pays for its own elementary school, and then there's a split for the middle school as well as the high school. And the capital budget that was presented, that's the 5-year capital plan first year, a little more than $2.4 million, and that was funded through available funds and no use of the tax levy. I wanted to talk a little bit about our community initiatives. And again, this all ties back to where we want to be in 2030, as well as the select board's goals and objectives. So about a year ago, town meeting approved an alternative assessment so that each town pays for its own elementary school. That was an equity issue that the town of Harwich and Chatham had decided was very fair. It's still the same quality of learning and the same quality of teaching at both schools, but each town has contributes to our own. To do so, the town was pretty innovative, and we were able to approve an increase to the local rooms occupancy tax. This is really the hotel motel tax. The state allows us to charge up to 6%, but for many years we were only at 4%. So with that additional 2%, 1% went to the elementary school, and as Chair Mike had mentioned, the other 1% went towards attainable housing. We also, a couple of years ago, established a Dr. Florence Selden preschool family support program. This program is for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and 26 families took advantage of this, and not with siblings. So it was very successful the first year, and what it provides is $5,000 for a 3-year-old to the preschool provider directly, and for a 4-year-old, it's $10,000 directly to the preschool provider. We have so many beautiful thank you notes from the families that participate. Another community initiative program we have is the Child Care Voucher Program. This is a little different. This could be from a toddler up until someone who's 21 years old. And it covers childcare, summer camp. The funding usually ranges between $700 to $1,500 per applicant in order to get as many people in the program as possible, and that's well established. And the housing initiatives that were just mentioned, certainly visit the town's housing page. I have the website here located for that. And then one of the newer programs that we're offering is an adult supportive daycare program, and that's at the Chatham Center for Active Living at 193 Stony Hill. We hope to have that up and running in early winter 2025. Right now, we partner with the town of Orleans, but there's some limitations to the amount of residents that can participate. We're hoping this will expand the program. And then, as we always talk about, because I think this is a thing that keeps me up night, most nights, is our coastal resiliency and access. And again, our Team Chatham departments have been so successful, notably the Natural Resources Department, on getting a dredging grant for Stage Harbor and 90 Bridge Street. And then the town contributes about $400,000 a year towards dredging as a capital program. And then the State Seaport Economic Council grant, we received $1 million to go towards the 90 Bridge Street project, including the docks and the upweller. And that's what's pictured there is the upweller concept. And then the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grants, well, about almost $500,000 for Climate Adaptation Action Plan and determining low-lying roads. There's a town committee, the Energy and Climate Action Committee, that is well vested in this and very knowledgeable. Another item that obviously we want to do is protect and enhance our drinking water supply. You'll have DPW Rob Faley here tonight to talk about sewer and wastewater, but he also can answer questions on the water program as well. So right now, our water treatment plant for wells 5 and 8, town meeting back in 2023, not that long ago, approved $19 million for a construction of the treatment plant to address iron and manganese and PFAS, and those efforts have begun. And then new wells were created, wells 10 and 11, and construction is nearing completion. And we expect both wells to be online, hopefully as early as fall and early winter. And then a drinking water pumping and construction updates is provided to the select board on the second Tuesday of the month if you want to tune in both remotely and in person. And here's just a slide of the progress for the permanent treatment facility for PFAS at wells 5 and 8. So looking ahead, if you want to mark your calendars, after this meeting, we will have our tax classification hearing meeting on September 10th. That's where the select board will vote to vote to authorize the tax rate. And then bills will be delivered by October 1st. We have a special town meeting this year on September 16th. The select board will consider the warrant for that meeting at their next meeting on August 20th. It was called in part for the purpose of consideration of the 90 Bridge Street project by itself versus part of the waterfront infrastructure bond that was presented at town meeting in May that did not pass town meeting, but it did pass through the voters in the election. And then we already have our FY26 budget summit for October 22nd, and our select board value statement and goal objectives, we'll be looking at that in December. And then again, January through April, we'll be having public meetings and hearings on the FY26 budget. And then town meeting will be in May 2025, and the select board will set that date by December 31st of this year. I wanted to also just talk about a little bit about community connections. So communication between the community and the governing body is key to finding solutions and new ways of doing business. And I ask that if you're interested to subscribe to our website. This main sheet is a weekly newsletter that goes out through email, so it's not actually on social media, but we do post it. So if you're not on social media and you want to still be connected, the main sheet is your place to do it. And what you see there is, it's small, but the slide on what it looks like to subscribe to notify me. And then we also, on our website, have Budget Central that provides budgets that go back about 20 years, including our new digital budget book, Town Meeting Central, as I mentioned before. Our town manager monthly reports to the select board. That's usually the last meeting of the month. And every department reports. It's about 50 pages long. And it's just very interesting materials behind the scenes and some of the items that we're working on but maybe not ready to present to the select board, or looking back at the progress of those items that have already been approved. And then we are one of the few towns that have a financial transparency site. This is where you can actually go onto the site and see where we are with our revenues and expenditures. And on the town's website, you can also see annual reports, we do surveys and so forth. So I encourage you to visit it. And also we have a new AI chatbot that we're working with. It's really great. It's finding materials on our website specific to Chatham. And I think that's really important instead of getting, and we get calls every day for Chatham, New Jersey, or another Chatham. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this bot is able to cull some of our information that are on the that's on the website. And then online services, if you need a building permit, or if you're curious if your neighbor has a building permit, or if you want to file a complaint, this is the place to look up. So again, focusing on transparency, you can certainly just go on it for a specific purpose, or you can create a password if you're having multiple permits that you want to track for yourself. This is another portal for short-term rental owner applications. So this is through OpenGov. This is the first page you would hit. It's through our health department. And then you're able to access the application for the Chatham regulation for registration, as well as the state regulation. This is our online services for paying your taxes, water and sewer bills, and our sticker program. So this is the landing page through City Hall Systems. And for beach stickers, we typically open the portal usually in January or February, specifically for seasonal and summer residents to be able to process their sticker online and receive it at your primary residence where you receive mail before you come here. Or we certainly know not everyone wants to do payments online. We can certainly come to the sticker office here, as well as the treasure collector's office at the Main Street properties. Renew your mooring. Mooring renewals usually go out around Thanksgiving. If you want to take a look at where you are with your mooring, or want to join a wait list, this is the portal for you. And I'm just showing you the front pages of it, but certainly you can navigate your way through. For social media, the town has a Facebook page, an X page, an Insta page, as well as LinkedIn. And again, the link on the bottom shows you how to subscribe for Notify Me on our town website. This also includes any job openings and notifications, such as beach closures. We try to have all the platforms hit whenever we're putting out information. Last, if you want to watch our meetings, we have the Chatham YouTube channel. That's a way that you can watch the meeting, but you don't actually have to log on to Teams. And we have some really great programming. Our Chatham TV staff, who is behind us in the control room giving me the thumbs up, they've done some really cool programs. A more recent program was backstage on the shellfish propagation at the Upweller with our shellfish propagation specialists. Ben did come to the summer residence and answered every question, even the mating habits of clams. We had a birds and the bees discussion. It was very interesting. So we have Tom Barr from our DPW department has talked about how a water well works and about the sewer. So if you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, feel free to log on. And then you can always see our regulatory meetings on demand. In case you're not available to participate live or virtually, you can just grab it from the town's website. And lastly, just want to send a note from our town employees to thank you as our summer or seasonal residents, and we're here to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. And I really can't tell you how much we appreciate Jill and the support and the guidance that she gives us all the time. So thank you so much for all your help and support. So if we can go back to the SRAC presentation on page 4. I'm supposed to do this. I'll look at that. Thank you. So we'll go through an overview of the SRAC in 2024. And our first task each year is to identify where we'd like to spend our time and energy and leverage the expertise of our group. And we had two primary inputs. At our first meeting back in April, Stuart Green shared with us an analysis of the issues that had shown up frequently in the Chronicle over the past year. And you won't be surprised at the hit list here: parking, attainable and affordable housing, water demands, restrictions and pumps, sewers and the related hookups, grinder pumps and the homeowner expense, coastal erosion and flooding, the new PFAS standards, the airport, the CFAL and adult daycare, short-term rental regulations, and the Goose Pond racial incident. And then thanks to Jeannie Allen, who unfortunately isn't here tonight, we also conducted our second annual summer residence survey. We had 102 responses this year. A couple of interesting data points to share. On average, the respondents have owned a Chatham residence for just over 25 years, the longest being 134 years. One continuous family. And when not in Chatham, part-time residents live in a variety of states across the U.S., spanning both coasts and the inland states, with regional clusters, not surprisingly, in New England and in Florida. So the top issues identified in the survey were related to water use and quality, parking and traffic, especially downtown during the summer, and affordable housing. So for those who haven't completed a survey, if you'd like to, there are some blank forms in the back, and you can turn those in. And again, your input is always needed as we continue to make sure we've got our eye on the right things. Now, some of the issues that were identified here have been addressed by others, such as the airport. That gets a lot of attention. And there are other issues where we've engaged in the past, and these issues have really moved forward, such as plans to renovate the CFAL. Land has already been acquired for affordable and attainable housing. We heard a little bit about that from Mike. And the new short-term rental regulation has already been released. So we decided not to spend much time in these areas. Now, there's still quite a bit of discussion and key open issues around the sewer project, which is underway, specifically the cost for each homeowner to hook up to the sewer system, which could be in the range of $10,000 to $12,000. Additionally, there's an open question regarding whether the town or the homeowner should pay for grinder pumps when needed, as they could add another $10,000 to $12,000 to the cost. Now, there's a wide range of cost estimates, but this is based on some of the recent work that's been done, so it's just a ballpark and certainly not a commitment of any type. So the sewer project seemed to meet our criteria. Laying the actual sewer pipe and connecting homes to the line is important to everybody, to the entire town, as we try to reduce the nitrogen load. And the project is impactful not just to summer residents, but all residents, especially those who may need a grinder pump. And with this, we began our journey into the sewer. Well, actually, we'll address this in more detail with you later on in the evening, including our position. Now, while not focus areas this year, our committee does still keep on top of a wide range of issues that are important to all of us, so let me hit a few highlights. One of our first meetings was with Carrie Mazzaroli, our new town finance director, and Stephen Daniel, who chairs the finance committee. As you all know, the town continues to have a strong financial position. The budget and financial policies are working effectively. Reserves are stable versus 2023. And as you heard from Jill, the AAA bond rating has been maintained. Property values remain high and support the town activities. Our tax rate remains the lowest on the Cape at about $3.57 per $1,000, while the Cape average is over $6 per $1,000. The town does have borrowing capacity, but capital projects will need to be prioritized. There's always a wide range of needs, from the transfer station to the Bridge Street and the Upweller, pumping stations with the potential impact of changing PFAS standards, and of course the sewer project. Natural Resources Director Greg Berman and DPW Director Rob Faley met with us and shared the pumping station capability and work that's being done to help ensure that we have access to potable water. And Jeff Colby and Bruce Bogardus, also from the Water and Sewer Committee, joined us to talk about water availability, the sewer project, and water management during droughts, among a few other things. We also met with Pat Burke, who chairs the Council on Aging Board of Directors, and Layla Cross, our Community Services Director. And they spent a long time with us, which was real interesting, and discussed the many programs that they offer to the senior community. and the renovation plans for the existing facility. We also actually learned a bit more about where some of their funding comes from, which is outside of the town budgeting process, due to the Friends of the COA. They do some fundraising to sponsor some of their programs. Bob Davis, who chairs the Selfish Advisory Committee, and Ben, who you heard about, spent time with us to talk about the 90 Bridge Street project and the need to replace the upweller. And again, we got a sense of the importance of that project to the culture of Chatham and its long history in the water. So we do try to monitor and keep our finger on the pulse of these key areas. We have not developed any additional position papers in response to these presentations. Now, we also try to look ahead a bit and identify emerging issues. And here we have not yet had a chance to learn much about the new short-term rental regulation and its impact on the town. We have a meeting with Judith Giorgio, the town health agent, scheduled for August 23rd, where we'll get more insight into the regulations and their impact on residents and homeowners. So that's what we've been doing for the past few months. It's really interesting to have the chance to meet with so many different town officials and the staff across such a wide range of topics. And I'll be honest with you, personally, I've really enjoyed it, the chance to meet with the town folks and to work as a team here. And you really have met some great people. So that's a summary of what we've been up to. And so it's time to turn to the primary topic of the evening, which is the town sewer project. And so we asked Rob Faley, the DPW director, if he would provide some background and an education on the project, the who, the what, the when, the why, and also give everyone a primer on grinder pumps, as that's become such an area of interest. When Rob's done, I'll turn it over to Joel Rotner, from the SRAC, and he'll share with us our thoughts and position on who should pay for grinder pumps. And then I'll follow up with some of the other sewer project-related material. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Rob Faley, DPW Director, Town of Chatham. So just wanted to get started, give a brief overview of where we've been over the past 14 or so years and where we're headed into the future. So this is a map that's been around for since 2010. Many of you have probably seen it before. It's where the town, it indicates where it's been broken up into two sewering phases. The dark blue is the phase one, that's the higher priority, approximately 4,500 parcels, and that's the primary focus to reduce nitrogen in entering our waterways. Phase two is the lighter blue area. It's a much smaller area, 2,300 parcels. And that's really to address fiscal fairness and to sewer the entire town. There was a commitment back then to sewer the entire town and not just focus on the nitrogen reduction. The red area on the map is just the existing sewage system that has been in place for 50 years. That's mostly the downtown area. So if we focus on the map to the left, that's after the phasing was decided, we worked on creating kind of a backbone down Route 28 corridor to go to the new wastewater treatment facility, and then also to extend down to the Barn Hill area. That's kind of it's all gravity fed through that area, so it really creates a kind of a backbone, you know, it's a focal point where everything can drain into. Everything has to lead to the wastewater treatment facility before so it can get treated and before it gets re-entered into the groundwater. You know, on the right side is the 2024 sewer phasing map. You can see it's still the dark blue and the light blue, but you can see the area in red has been expanded substantially. That's area where sewer is established, and the areas in green are areas that are under construction or under design. Sewer costs to date, since 2010, $118 million has been spent on active or completed sewer projects. That includes $39 million for the water pollution control facility or the wastewater treatment plant. $137 million has been appropriated, so that still gives us a little bit more room to address some of those areas in green that aren't under construction yet. So it's nice to have a little money on the table. Annual town meeting in 2025, we will request additional funding based on our most recent SRF application. So just a quick overview of the current construction activity in town. In yellow is the Queen Anne Pumping Station. It's right here. You probably have all seen it. It's down by the Village Market. CC Construction is the contractor. It's about a $2 million project. That pump station has been in place for 50 years. It's one of the original pump stations, so we needed to replace it. It met its useful life. Contract 1D2A is in this area in red and this area in red. It's CC Construction project, about 1.7 million. We did Mill Hill Road, Meeting House Road, a small piece of Middle Road, and Twine Field. Also includes a substantial pump station at the bottom of Meeting House Road, which coincidentally will be adjacent to one of our affordable housing projects. In purple is contract 1E2, which is the Old Mill, and I'm sorry, just so Queen Anne and 1D2A are both nearing completion. They should be active within the next 6 months. Recently, this year, we put out the following 3 projects, which is 1E2, the Old Mill Boatyard Sewer Extension. It's down by the Harbor Master's office. There's a large 2-story pump station down there. It also ran sewer up Stage Harbor Road and some of the private side roads in that area. And it also extended into Champlain. Diggett Construction was awarded that contract, and it was a $5.7 million contract. In blue in this area is contract 1C5. It's the Oyster Pond Sewer Extension. Again, CC Construction, $7.9 million. It connects sewer in some of these smaller neighborhoods. The bigger area of focus is the Oyster Pond Condo Association. There's a large pump station. We were granted an easement in their yard to construct a pump station, and it connects all the condos to that pump station. And finally, in green, it's kind of hard to see, is the Mill Pond Pump Station upgrade. Again, it's another 50-year-old pump station. It's in a very environmentally sensitive area. It's right up against Mill Pond, right near a landing. Robert B. Auer was the contractor. Ground has not broken on that yet, but we are very close. That's a $2.9 million project. I want to point out that in addition to sewer expansion, you'll notice 2 of these are sewer upgrades, just because we have an aging infrastructure. So not only are we balancing expanding the sewer system, we also need to maintain what we have. So that is a challenge, and it does eat up some of the money that's available. So looking at the next phases of implementation, we worked with our engineer, and we really decided that to address the nitrogen loading in Oyster Pond, to really try to handle some of the low-hanging fruit, some of the areas that are easy. I know the grinder pump procurement is a hot topic. It's a hot topic for everybody. So we said, what areas can we focus on that are gravity-fed? And we can address some of those kind of easier areas to manage while this other conversation is ongoing. So we really looked at the focus areas, finish the Stage Harbor area. This is, we're calling it Cedar Road. There's a pump station down in here in the purple area. We're under design for that. There's actually a town parcel in there, and we are working with Natural Resources and the Conservation Commission to try to get approval to install that pump station. The other area is to get the Oyster River, get the nitrogen reduced going into the Oyster River, into this neighborhood. And then some of the green and orange areas are all just smaller neighborhoods off of Route 28 that would all be gravity fed. It would just, basically, it would be a very low-hanging fruit, very easy for us to progress those contracts forward. So looking ahead, again, I mentioned the SRF application. So last month, we applied to the state revolving fund for a little over $31 million, and that would target construction in 2026, typically 2 years of construction. Typically, the state will limit the amount of funds they distribute each year. We would expect probably $15 million each year if we're successful, but we had to put the request out there for 2 years. We will be initiating conversations with neighborhoods that, areas we identified may need a pump station if we can't find pump station locations. So We really want to have those conversations so we can try to work with neighborhoods to try to find available land to get a pump station installed. Also tentatively, we have a 2027 SRF request of 40 million, and that'll focus on pump station 20, which is up here. And that's a very critical pump station. A lot of pump stations in North Chatham would pump to pump station 20. So we'd really establish, instead of a backbone, it would be more like a leg. So we would get that Route 28 corridor and get that sewage pumped back to the wastewater treatment plant. And then tentatively for 2029, we would look at $30 million for pump station 73. Again, that's another critical area for North Chatham. We really, in talking with the engineer, we really wanted to focus some of our efforts at the Pleasant Bay watershed. It's an area that we haven't put a lot of focus on, but that area has a comprehensive wastewater plan that's more recent than the rest of Chatham. So as we go through our wastewater treatment plan, the points we get when we apply to SRF using the project evaluation form, we get more points if our comprehensive plan is less than 15 years old. So the Pleasant Bay Alliance plan is less than 15 years old. So if we focus on that area, it'll be more likely that we actually get funding. So it's just a shift in our thought process over the last couple of years. So future sewer areas. I know this map is not the easiest to read. You'll see a lot of white areas on there. That's what we anticipate will be gravity-fed sewer systems. Those are all the parcels that will be gravity-fed. And I'll zoom in on this in a minute so we can see it a little bit better. The parcels in yellow, we're anticipating to be on low-pressure sewer, meaning they would have grinder pumps. There's only a few parcels in green, but they are adjacent to both, and depending on topography, it may just go one way or the other. And the parcels in orange are typically down long private ways that most likely will be on low pressure, unless we can work out some kind of an arrangement with the property owners. It's not always so easy because those parcels tend to be down by the waterfront. And with flooding requirements, we typically have to install 2-story pump stations, and that may not be the most attractive development on a waterfront. So as promised, here's the zoomed in area. This is just the area up by like Sea Pine and Woodland Way. You could see this area would all be gravity fed if we can get pump stations in these 2 locations where these blue squares are. If we're not successful, then we have to have conversations, difficult conversations. But sewer design is dependent on topography, the existing utilities, and the availability of pump station locations. So this is really a critical conversations that we'll be having with neighborhoods. In 2006, the townwide sewer plan identified 81 potential pump stations. We dropped a few, we've added a few, so we're still right around that number. Regardless, grinder pumps will be needed for some residents. It's just based on topography. Currently, we anticipate just over 1,000 grinder pumps. And if the town were to purchase grinder pumps, we still have 2 options. One is through SRF funding, and one is through the tax rate. The difference is if we were to purchase grinder pumps through SRF funding, we would be responsible for the purchase, the installation, and the maintenance of those grinder pumps in perpetuity. 40, 50 years down the road, as those grinder pumps need to be replaced, we don't know what our financial situation will be. We own it. We own it forever. The difference with the tax rate, we could be more flexible. We could purchase the grinder pumps. Maybe we maintain them, maybe we install them, maybe we don't. But that's a discussion for down the road. But that's all I had, unless you had any questions.
Could you just do a brief primer on what a grinder pump is and does, with just a real primer, like why we might need one depending on topography? I don't know that everyone knows that.
Sure. So a grinder pump is basically a pump that's submersed in your yard. So you have gravity leaving your house, gravity sewer leaving your house. It goes to this grinder pump. And either your house may be lower than the road elevation, you may have a really long distance between your house and the road, and you can't pitch a gravity sewer from your house to the road. So you need to, it's basically a grinder pump. So it's just, you drain your sewage from your house to this grinder pump, and then it is pumped up to the main under a smaller force main pipe, like a 2-inch low-pressure pipe. It's pretty simple operation. A lot of people don't know what it is. It's not something that would be, obtrusive in your yard. It would be like a small plastic manhole cover. You could hide it in your landscaping. It's pretty unobstructive, but it does have a cost, and it does have an operational cost.
Is it possible to snake that pipe all the way up?
Excuse me, hang on, we, just a second, please. Joel, did you have a? Right, right. Yeah. Okay, did you have a question first?
Yeah, I do have a question. You suggested that grinder pumps were required when the property is lower. Am I mistaken that grinder pumps may also be required when their low-pressure systems are installed? That low-pressure systems are often installed as a way of saving money for the town in the installation of the sewer, so you don't have to dig as deep with a gravity system, and there are other reasons that could go on with grinder pumps. It's not simply that the home is lower than the road.
There is a cost-benefit analysis that needs to be done. I mean, if to install a pump station where there are only, say, 3 or 4 houses in a subdivision, even a low-cost pump station is still a couple of $100,000. We have to make those decisions of whether that's a viable option for the town. But yes, we will intentionally install low pressure in some roads.
Thank you.
Sorry, the gentleman had a question. If you would go up to the podium, please, so we can hear you, or to the microphone in the center, whatever you prefer.
Can I get close to you or not? Whatever you. Well, the question is, you have to stay up here,
I am not familiar with the grinder pump, so I'm learning along with the rest of you tonight. But one of the questions I have that I might be faced with individually is pumping up a driveway to the main sewer location. Now, I've had electricity, I've had water, all this coming down with a snake underground. Is it possible to run a 2-inch pipe up the hill to the main sewer without ripping up a whole driveway to get up there?
It is possible. However, there is a cost associated with it. So, it really is up to a contractor, but they can snake a small 1.5 or 2-inch line. It's just like a conduit.
Well, that's the cost of ripping up the whole driveway and having to pay, so it's
Yeah,
one or the other.
that's a discussion you'd have to have with your contractor, but yes, it is possible.
Thank you. Rob, thank you. We'll come back at the end. If there are any other questions, I'm sorry.
Just one question. Approximately, how much would it cost to buy 1,000 grinder pumps?
So we've talked to Mahoney, who is a supplier of E1 grinder pumps, and if we were to do a bulk purchase, or at least a contract for that amount, we negotiated roughly a $6,000 cost per grinder pump.
$6 million.
6,000
Per pump.
grinder pump. All right. And then we'd have the pumps to do what we wanted.
So what we would do, we wouldn't buy them all outright. There's a need now for maybe 200 or 300. We would buy those. And then there may be another need for 50 or so a year for the next 10 or 15 years. So we wouldn't purchase them in advance and have them sitting on a shelf. We would buy them as needed.
Right. We'd have the option, so we control the cost.
Correct.
And then we could do what we wanted with the the grinder pumps, where they'd be used and how. That's not resolved on your chart.
No, it's not. I intentionally did not.
Okay.
bring
Thank
that
you very
discussion to
much.
light. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rob. All right, if we can go back to the presentation, Mark, to page 5, and I'll turn it over to Joel Rotner, who's going to share the SRA position on grinder pumps with everyone.
Good evening. Now that we've all learned about grinder pumps, I think you can see the issue is how to pay for the grinder pumps. And I'm going to present from the chair here rather than go to the podium, because I want to emphasize that SRAC put a lot of time into what I'm about to say. SRAC put a lot of effort and time into learning about grinder pumps and the cost of grinder pumps. Jeff says, or explained already, that SRAC, Summer Residence Advisory Committee, I'll call it the committee going forward, met every Friday, and that's typically what we had done. This summer, Jeff scheduled meetings on Wednesdays. So not only did we meet on Friday, we met on Wednesdays, and this group put an incredible effort in and time and effort to get together a position as to where we are now with respect to grinder pumps. And that position is that the town, rather than the homeowner, should be responsible for the purchase and installation of the grinder pumps. In order to get to that position, we determined that we would start at the beginning. This process started in 2003, and from 2003 until 2009, the town of Chatham was diligently working on a comprehensive wastewater management plan. The effort included town employees, including Robert Duncanson, PhD, Chatham Director of Health and the Environment, and he was the senior public official responsible for the development and implementation of this plan. It included a special town committee, the Water and Sewer and Technical Advisory Committee, or I guess the Technical Advisory Committee, with respect to the comprehensive wastewater management plan. It included outside consultants and engineers. And after that period of time in 2009, ultimately a final draft comprehensive wastewater management plan was developed by the town of Chatham and submitted to the, among others, to the DEP, but also to the Cape Cod Commission for approval. And in October 2010, the Cape Cod Commission approved Chatham's comprehensive wastewater management plan. That plan specifically provides that grinder pumps be purchased and installed, or would be purchased and installed by the town. That would be part of the town's obligation, or obligations might be too strong a word, but that would be part of the town's, the plan required the town to purchase and install the grinder pumps and incur that expense rather than passing that expense on to the homeowner. The plan, with respect to the homeowner, provided that the homeowner would bear the cost of the lateral connection. And the cost of that connection would vary depending on the length of the run. So that was the 2009 Comprehensive Management Plan approved by the Cape Cod Commission in 2010. Along the way, on January 20th, 2010, Mr. Duncanson prepared a memo to town manager at that time, William Hinchy, which referenced the relevant tables and other indications in the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, providing which tables provided that the town would shoulder the capital expense for the purchase and installation of the wastewater management plan. We also located a February 23, 2010 document captioned Wastewater Presentation Attachment, and which identified as part of the presentation attachments full cost estimates which we presume would have included the reference to the grinder pumps included or installation and purchase included in the town's obligation. The town also prepared, the town also prepared a document entitled Town of Chatham Wastewater Project Frequently Asked Questions, updated December of 2010. And in various portions of that document, specific questions were posed, all of which indicated that grinder pumps purchase and installation would be paid for by the town. The committee also discovered select board minutes dated May 19, 2011. Those minutes disclosed that that meeting was devoted to the discussion of the financial implication of the sewer project, and that at that time, the town had hired another independent consultant, Robert Ciolik, as its independent financial expert. On April 20th, 2011, there was a memo from Mr. Ciolik to the Select Board, Ray, quote, Financial Review of Wastewater Management Plan, Chatham. And in his memo, Mr. Ciolik stated, as to the true cost to the homeowner, and remember that in developing a plan like this, it's not just the plan. If the plan isn't implemented, what good is it? And the plan can only be implemented if the town is going to pay for it and if the homeowners can afford to pay for it, because you can have the best sewers in the world, but if nobody connects, we're back to ground zero. That concern is expressed in the Cape Cod Commission approval and the DEP approvals, always concerned with the financial aspects of the plan. So getting back to Mr. Ciolik's memo to the Select Board, as to the true cost to the homeowner, such expenses are justifiably not part of the town's capital program and not required to be included in it. And again, I'm quoting from his memo. Included in its capital budget, I should say. However, it is admittedly a real cost to the homeowner, and the February presentation estimated that hookup costs will be in the range from $3,000 to $10,000. I think we heard some more today, and we can understand why. But back then, and this was even in 2010, based on 2007 dollars, the estimated cost to homeowners was $3,000 and $10,000. And Mr. Ciolik concludes, addressing the concerns of the plan implementation, that given the decision to have the town assume the cost of the grinder pump's purchase and installation, the estimated range of expenses, the $3,000 to $10,000 to property owners, is fair. We also discovered, and this may be one of the more important things, that the town sent a mailing to all postal addresses on town, I don't want to say letterhead, it was a document that was captioned May 2009, Town of Chatham Comprehensive Wastewater Management Planning Products. Quote, Chatham Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan moves toward implementation. And the first page of that document contained the official seal of the town of Chatham. The date, May 2009, is highly significant because in the May 2009, the first town meeting occurred where the town voters were asked to approve funding for the first part of the implementation of the comprehensive wastewater management plan that we're still pursuing to this day. And in that mailing, the town stated as follows, quote, each property owner would incur a one-time connection cost averaging between $3,000 and $10,000, and we just heard where that figure came from, depending on the distance of their home or business from the street. There was no mention prior to town meeting that the homeowners, if they approve this project, might find that the cost to connect to the sewer, if they were required to include a grinder pump, may double. Since 2009, or even before, the town has made multiple representations such as this to the voters and property owners that the town would pay for the purchase and installation of grinder pumps. It's reasonable to conclude that the town voters and property owners have relied on this representation. And when the plan was approved by the Cape Cod Commission, that specific approval in October 29, 2009 contained conditions, one of which was the following. The proposed project shall be constructed and implemented in accordance with the final comprehensive wastewater management plan, consistent with the findings, which findings, by the way, included that the expected homeowner charges are estimated at $3,000 to $10,000 for hookups. And the conditions went on that any changes to the comprehensive wastewater management plan that would change the impact or the findings shall be reviewed and thereby would have to be reevaluated through a modification of the approval decision. So to the extent that Chatham wishes to change the 2009 wastewater management plan in many significant expenses, such as the funding of the grinder pumps, Chatham would have to go back to the Cape Cod Commission. So based on all of the foregoing, the Summer residents concluded that the plan was submitted and approved. The plan was thoroughly vetted for years between 2003 and 2009 by town employees, town citizens. The pros and cons of all aspects of that plan and the financing of that plan were thoroughly considered at that time. There hasn't been any, or the Summer Residence Committee has not come up with any indication that anything has changed since then. And therefore, the Summer Residence Advisory Committee sees no reason to go back and revisit what seemed to be very reasonable and very well thought out conclusions and recommendations that were made in the 2009 Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. And therefore, the Summer Residence Advisory Committee has submitted to the Select Board in writing a recommendation outlining essentially what I've presented here and concluding as follows. The Summer Residence Advisory Committee recommends that the Select Board include in all future town warrant articles for financing the sewer wastewater collection system the capital costs associated with the purchase and installation of grinder pumps. In addition, the Summer Residence Advisory Committee recommends that the Select Board take the necessary steps to reimburse homeowners who have already incurred the expense to purchase and install grinder pumps. Now, as you heard Mr. Faley today state, there could be various ways of doing this, and how it's done is certainly an issue that the Select Board and the town is going to have to face. But the Summer Residence Advisory Committee concludes and recommends that their consideration of the question of whether it should be done was more than adequately reviewed and should remain as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. So we'll continue through the end of the sewer discussion. So in addition to our formal position that Joel shared based upon the documentation that we reviewed and that's been shared with the public, we also believe the grinder pump cost should be borne by the town just from an equity perspective. We haven't had time to really work this in detail, but there'd be more to come if necessary. Now, I'm sorry. Now, grinder pumps do require some maintenance, and we've been partnering with a group of residents who live on Lime Hill Road and Opsagami Run to better understand these costs and how to best provide the service. This group has done a lot of work over the past 2 years. They've talked to many towns on and off the Cape and have captured some great data. As there will be about 1,000 grinder pumps, our initial assessment is aligned with the Lime Hill Group that the town should provide this service and determine it is best delivered from town staff or outsourced to a vendor. There's still more work to do here. So looking ahead, we plan to continue to work with the town and the Lime Hill Group to look for opportunities to reduce the sewer hookup costs for all residents. Two areas that we've begun to talk about are the required engineering report and the permit costs. But we should look at the entire hookup process to see where we can find efficiency and savings for all residents. More communication from the town would be beneficial so that residents have a better understanding of what is coming their way and when. This would make it easier for residents and neighbors to aggregate work for a contractor and hopefully lower the cost. Additionally, making this information available on the website would make it easier for contractors to identify what work will be needed and when, and they can reach out to residents to plan ahead. Help. Hopefully that'll change in a minute. But there we go, thank you. So finally, as we look down the road and our project moves forward, so will sewer projects in other towns on the Cape. We should look at developing additional contractor capability. As many of us know already, electricians and plumbers, they're pretty busy today. And last, let's make sure that our vocational schools are fully aware of the sewer-related work that's coming down the road across the Cape, so they can help build some of the skills we'll need that will likely become good-paying jobs. As Joel mentioned, we shared our position with the Select Board and the Water and Sewer Committee over the weekend and requested time on an upcoming Select Board agenda to allow for more detailed discussion. And this is probably not the best venue to do that, but we're certainly glad to discuss and take some questions. That's what we have on this topic. Hopefully we've met the SRAC objectives, which is to give the summer residents a voice, to give the Select Board the benefit of information and views, to give fresh outlooks to the town, and to take a position and make a case for or against town matters. So with that, we'd like to move to questions and answers.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, you can.
Sure, thanks.
You also.
I'm sorry, start with who?
If the town is to pay for the grinder pumps, I just heard a unit cost of $6 million approximately, plus whatever the labor and contracting cost of installation, plus the maintenance. So maybe that's 10 million all in, or 15 million for the installation, and I don't know what the annual appropriation for maintenance would be, but has the committee given any thought about how to finance this expense?
The committee's position is that was all considered when the plan was adopted, or when the plan was projected.
2009?
That was all considered. How to finance it, that's what I was trying to point out. The financing was considered, it was considered to be, to allocate the expenses so the town would pay for the purchase and installation of the grinder pumps. I would say that, I hope I'm right on this, as I recall, I did a calculation, or we did a calculation, where in 2007 dollars, the grinder pumps were 5% of the total cost of the sewer installation. So while the number sounds big, as a total cost of the whole project, it's 5%. But to respond to your question, how to pay for it, the town was always going to have to pay for the sewer. As to how you allocate this cost, that's what the 2009 Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan provided for after, we believe, what must have been, 6 years of incredible deliberation.
Mr. Chair, we do have Vice Chair of the Select Board, Dean DeCastro, participating virtually with his hand up.
Okay, thank you. Dean, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. First of all, I'm speaking just for myself as an individual member of the Select Board, and I very much appreciate SRAC's focusing on the sewer project because providing this educational forum for the public is a valuable contribution. And with so many other things happening and so many other issues commanding our attention, it's important for all of us to keep an eye on the progress of our sewering program. I have read your report and the attachments which you so kindly sent to us over the weekend and as recently as yesterday. And I want to commend Joel Rotner and the committee and yourself. You've prepared an excellent and well-researched and well-documented report, which I would commend everyone to read. I don't want to go into too much detail about the history, but Joel referenced the town meeting of 2009, and of course that was the critical vote to get the funding started on this project. And that vote was following a motion that was presented in kind of high-level fashion and a slide presentation by Dr. Duncanson, also in high-level fashion. I've looked at the warrant information. It does contain no express vote by the town meeting, nor does an examination of the records of the minutes of the select board from that period contain any express vote by the select board to pay for the town to pay for grinder pumps. But I do acknowledge the historical record that Joel has so carefully laid out, and the fact that the warrant presentation in 2009 did make reference to the comprehensive wastewater management plan. I guess the key point I want to make here is that the designated speaker on that motion, the person that really has the most of the knowledge in his head about all of this, is Dr. Robert Duncanson. So for a complete assessment of what the town had in mind about grinder pumps, I think it would be very helpful to hear from him. And with that in view, he has been invited to the next meeting of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee on August 19th. The details of his attendance are being worked out. He's been out of the country, I believe. But it would be very beneficial for everyone to hear what he might have to say about grinder pumps and what was intended in the historical record. I serve as the Select Board's liaison to that board, to that committee. Let me just say, though, further, that even accepting that there was a commitment by the town back in 2009 to pay for grinder pumps, I would submit it is open today for the town, through its select board and town meeting, to consider changes to the original plan or a different approach. 15 years on, we are dealing with multiple challenges that tax our financial resources that did not exist back then. Drinking water quality and quantity, PFAS, the crisis of affordable and attainable housing, waterfront infrastructure, transfer station improvements, the CFAL, and the ongoing viability of Chatham's elementary school, to name a few. Considerations of adaptive management put a responsibility on the select board to view matters through a 2024 lens. It might be that town coverage of grinder pumps might be focused on something less than the full cost of associated expenditures, or that betterments might be the way to go, or to make no change whatsoever. I don't know. Finally, on a remand from the Select Board, the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee has been carefully reviewing the grinder pump issue to present a policy recommendation to the Water and Sewer Commissioners, which are the Select Board. The Water and Sewer Advisory Committee has been addressing a list of subsidiary questions associated with grinder pumps and been taking votes on those issues. In the meantime, at the Select Board's request, the Board of Health has imposed a moratorium on mandatory grinder pump connections in order to relieve the pressure on property owners. I am hopeful that when the Water and Sewer Committee completes its work, the SRAC recommendation will be taken up in conjunction with the Water and Sewer Committee recommendation. I know that I have not yet made up my own mind on the issue, so I value all reasoned input, including yours. I want to thank you again for SRAC's excellent contribution on this important issue and for everything else you do. I've been on the board for 10 years, and you're an incredibly valuable resource to the Select Board. Thank you, Joe. Thank you all, members of the committee.
Dean, thank you very much. And as I mentioned, we had requested some time on a upcoming select board agenda, so we'd be glad to share with you whatever we have and continue the dialogue. So whatever works would be great. Thanks for your comments. Yes, please, go to the podium.
Thank you. My name is Victoria Quake. I live in South Chatham. Been coming to Chatham for over 20 years. And thank you so much for your hard work. So that map was great, and I love the staging and the backbone and the leg, and I know that we're really considering all of the different contamination sort of areas and monitoring that, but I didn't see any sort of updates for South Chatham. It sort of stayed very light blue. So my question would be, and my ask would be, is that the more we can communicate and put on the website, you know, let's just say maybe you're 2035 or whatever it may be, just so I feel like it's a very common question with a lot of my neighbors. Where are we? How is it going to be? Is it going to be 5, 10? Where are, you know, that kind of thing. So I would just put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Any other questions from the gang here? I'm sorry, from the attendees? I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm sorry, John stood up first. That's okay. Thank you.
John Harper from South Chatham, and so on, following up on that, basically, yeah, at one point I saw a map up down of Pleasant Street showing that basically my cottages may not even be ever on the sewer, so I'm not sure whether that, if I'm in that category of you're on the fringe, so maybe we'll get to you, maybe we won't. But the question I wanted to point out for other people here was, these grinder pumps, as I understand it, have a limited holding capacity. Basically, if your power goes out, you know, as to how much the tank will hold before you're up the Bleak Creek. And so if somebody has a need for a larger capacity storage tank and so on, how was that tie in? And, you know, obviously in my case, I'm sort of a commercial property, so, you know, I have multiple buildings and so on, so I would potentially need a different type of grinder pump. And as there might be some other situations here that would be similar, and I was just wondering how that ties in with this. So I'm not sure if Mr. Faley can give a...
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. That's why we have a position of what we think the town should do. The detail working, how that would actually be implemented would be worked by the town staff. The actual implementation of what would and wouldn't be paid for, what would be covered.
Right.
If there's incremental costs for certain property owners.
But I was wondering if we
standard
could get an idea of basically what this, you know, standard $6,000 grinder pump, what its capacity is in terms of, you know.
Oh, that sounds like that might be a Rob Faley question. That's not a Jeff Spalter question.
So it's not a lot, you know, it's, you know, you're talking probably 45 gallons plus whatever capacity you have in the pipe from your house to the pump.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that the church I go to, they had that problem and so on. It was like you know, I was even looking up some, and they have, you know, 500 or 600 gallon tanks and so on for commercial.
For larger commercial properties, they can do it. It's basically a septic tank, like a 1,000-gallon septic tank, and they'll have 2 impeller pumps in there, and there's a lot of storage if the power were to go out. And there'd be some capacity there, but that would all have to be engineered and designed.
True, right. That's what I was just wondering how, you know, how does that tie in with this? But, you know, it's something to think about, you know, so people know that maybe if they want more than that capacity, you know, it's like they go, well, you know, I got a lot of bedrooms and a lot of people and so on. I might want to have a bigger tank before I'm.
Right, but that's a much higher expense too than, you know, it's like a 7-foot tall, small diameter grinder pump that's put in the ground versus a concrete tank, you know, a large concrete tank.
Right.
So
I just want to bring it up. So.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question over here, please.
Hello, I'm Teetsa Mann, and this is my 40th summer at the Cape as an adult, and I'm thrilled to be here, enjoying every summer as always. And my question is, in thinking about the costs per homeowner, you mentioned the cost for the sewer installation. I presume that this other gentleman mentioned like driveways and other issues that might be destroyed or issued. And thinking about our septic tanks, will those be closed off? Will those be still attached? Is this discretionary? Are we obligated to hook up to the sewer? What is all this, and is there additional cost to us as homeowners for us to close off or seal off these septic tanks? How does all that play out?
Who's best to answer that? Rob, do you? I mean,
You might as well just stay here.
I could take a shot at it, but I don't want to commit to anything.
I'm certainly not the expert. It would really be probably the Board of Health, but So what typically your contractor would crush your existing septic tank and leave it in place and fill it with sand as an abandonment.
And that's
fee.
our expense as individual homeowners, in addition to
correct.
what we're paying for the sewer.
That's
So
right.
and
But that's typically, the excavator's already on site. They would just crush the top, pump it out, crush the top, fill it with sand.
And would we have to find this contractor, or this is the same one who's going to do the sewer hookup?
No, it would be whoever does your personal sewer hookup.
And is that somebody we have to find ourselves?
It is. We have a list of licensed utility installers. at
The plot
DPW.
thickens. There we go, there we go. Because you have to understand, I've been here for many, many years, and many years ago, we paid to have our the gas line hooked up, only to be told there was a moratorium and we could not use it. So we've had this gas line all these years, which we paid a lot of thousands of dollars for, and it destroyed my driveway. We had to pay to have things, and we've never been able to use it. So you see, I'm very suspicious about all of these additional kinds of things. So anyway, that's very good. Then the last thing was someone mentioned something, potentially, I think it was you, sir.
Thank you, Rob.
About, when we walked by, about maybe a two-story kind of something or other. What was that about?
So if we install a pump station in the flood zone, the ordinary high water for Chatham is 12 feet above sea level. We have to put all of our electrical components at 15 feet above sea level. So if we're building a pump station that's close to the water's edge, you can imagine how tall of a structure we're going to have.
Wow. Okay, very
And
interesting.
we are building those.
Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Anybody else? Okay, yep, please. Yeah, that should be fine.
Yes, the name is Steve Kruger. I've been a summer resident since 2003, and listening to all of this, just got two basic questions. When you put in a grinder pump, is it buried in the ground, or and it's got to be, and it goes from the house to the pump, but what happens from the pump to the sewer? Does that get included as well?
Yeah, the grinder pump actually moves the fluid from out to the main sewer line. So
But who's got to take care of putting in the sewer line from the grinder pump to the actual sewer that's going to be running in the street?
So the homeowner is responsible typically for connecting from the home to the main sewer line. That's your responsibility. The town will run the main line down the street, and you will connect. If a grinder pump is needed, that's an insertion between the main line and your house.
Okay.
And that's part of the discussion, is who's going to pay for that work.
And I've got one other question. The cost for it was determined, what, in 2009, correct? The $3,000 to
$10,000 was.
Has anybody factored in inflation between 2009 and
So
current?
there's some current experience out there that would say that with a grinder pump, you're in about the $20,000 range if you need a grinder pump. And again, it depends on, there's lots of variables, but that's about $20,000.
But if,
No, that's with the grinder pump. Oh, without the grinder pump, it's kind of 10 to 12 is the number we've been.
but if your house is high, you may not need one. Is that
That
what
is-
I'm hearing?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's at or below sea level where this is really an issue.
It's not a sea level issue, it's where your house is relative to where the sewer is. So if this is the sewer line and your house is here, and you flow down, you may very well not need a grinder pump. If the sewer line is here and your house is below it, you may need one.
But not necessarily.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
How did I do? Is that okay?
Just one point of clarity, Mr. Chair. So when the sewer main is in the street, we will stub it to the property line. The contractor will stake it out and then seek homeowner approval of the location. That's typically where the grinder pump will be installed, right at the property line, but we will stub it out to that location.
Thank you. That's almost what I said.
How's everyone?
Hey, it's Robin Laportio.
Nice to see you all. I thought since we're talking about costs, it might be relevant to talk about some of the cost mitigation issues that we've looked at in the past. So I don't know, Rob, if you could talk about even locating the stump in a place that's more palatable cost-wise, as well as like replumbing your basement so that you can put the line in a location that's closer to the street, and then also, joining with your neighbors so that you can mitigate some of the dig-up costs, and maybe it doesn't have to be down your driveway, it could be kind of on the adjacent property line, stuff like that people don't know about.
Sure.
And also, one other question. If there is still that exception regarding septics, if you install that additional system that sort of abates some of the bad, some of the things that we're trying to capture or prevent going into waterways and such. I don't know if that's still an issue, but anyway, thank you.
Sure, so some folks their house may be, further from where their driveway is. Say it's 200 feet, a long driveway, but they live adjacent to another road, and it's easier for them to just connect that way. But it requires them to replumb their basement. So they may, if they have an unfinished basement, a plumber may come in, and instead of the sewage going out the front of the house, they'll reverse it and have it go out the back, so there's a shorter run for them to connect to the town sewer. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of hidden expenses as well. So really, everybody is in an individual situation. I'm not sure, were you talking about the IA septic systems, which I believe are not required because we filed our NOI for the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Program. So Chatham residents are exempt from having to put in an IA system. So traditional septic systems are still fine.
If you do have one, you will still have to hook up to the sewer system, correct?
You will. You'll have 2 years from when the Board of Health gives their order, you have 2 years to hook up.
I'm just going to ask a question then. I thought I have one of those that I put in my house that we built a couple of years ago. I thought we had 10 years under all circumstances before we have to hook up to the sewer.
I believe so. You're out of my realm of expertise, but I don't know. I know the Director of Natural Resources is here if he wanted to speak on that, if he was comfortable with that. But that's really a Board of Health issue.
Yeah, we have this upcoming meeting with the Board of Health. Great, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Should we move a chair up here for you, maybe? Other questions? Anyone? There's no one I don't see anybody on the screen. Oh, please, go ahead.
My name is Jennifer Jones. I live on Woodland Way, so that little peninsula that he was showing that the pump stations need to go on privately owned land. Not mine, but some neighbors. So I just wanted to echo the request of maybe a timeline be added to this so that those communities that aren't being worked on yet that we know, and especially like, I don't see any of my neighbors here, but I'm sure word's going to spread. I won't tell it yet, but just I know that people will start asking questions and stuff like that and want to know, like, is this 15 years from now, or is it,
Sure.
We're getting notices next week. So, all right, thank you.
No, that's great, thank you. And to get the project done, I mean, everyone, there's going to be, we're all going to have to figure out how to work this together. I mean, it's a community project, and the town's going to need some land to put in pumping stations, and so just everyone let's all work it together. It's for us. So, anyway, sorry. Any other? Yes, please.
Jack Pierce, South Chatham. Have any grinder pumps been installed yet?
Yes.
Okay, and what was the cost? $8,000. Okay, and the residents picked that up?
Yes. So far, that's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Are there questions on other subjects as well?
We have a whole team of department heads in person and online if you have any questions.
Please, go right ahead.
Different topics, but kind of somewhat related. So like I said, I'm up in North Chatham in Harbor Coves, and so my kids swim in Crow's Pond. And I know there's like the water quality reports that go out for the beaches and things like that, but I have not been able to find anything for Crow's Pond. And I found some maybe private organizations or stuff that kind of overall do water quality testing. So I'm just curious of like where I could find reports on that, or to know that we're in a, it's okay for my kids to swim.
I see our Director of Natural Resources, Greg Berman, jumping up to answer that question.
Greg Berman, Natural Resources. So we do test all the bathing beaches in town for a variety of bacteria. Some of the ponds also get measured for bacteria, cyanobacteria. If a beach is deemed unsafe for a period of time, it's posted online and at the beach itself. So we will go out and install a sign at that location that's very hard, hopefully impossible to miss as you head towards the water. So if you don't see that sign, it's still an open and safe beach.
And correspondence included in that?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I couldn't tell. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Another question?
Hello again. With regard to the water quality, do any of the wells in Chatham suffer from algae blooms? And if they do, what do we treat them with?
So for the drinking water wells, that would be more of a DPW question.
Oh, sorry. Wrong guy, sorry.
No,
We really should just get you a chair, yes.
no algae blooms. They are tested on a regular basis, and there
Very
are no
good.
algae blooms.
Have you ever seen any of the residue from any of the treatment that produces the trihalomethanes as a residue?
So that's one of the PFAS chemicals, correct?
It can be.
So, I mean, we're
It's
regulated.
an FDA-certified carcinogen, that's why I ask.
Right. That's hexavalent chromium.
It's a very, I don't know about that part, but I know trihalomethanes are one of the residues after you treat water with chlorines and other kinds of things. It can be one of the byproducts from the treatment. And it's in very small amounts when you just treat it regularly. But if there's, in areas like where we come from in Florida, they have algae blooms when it gets warm, and then they actually put more in, which is a problem. But it's always a little bit there anyway. I was just wondering if you found any.
We have not seen any, and like I said,
Excellent.
our wells are
happy to hear
tested
this.
on a regular basis. We have a team that's watching water quality on a daily basis.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Rob before he sits down? Well, if there are no more questions, I'm sorry? We can ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second. We have a roll call?
Stuart Green, approve.
Don Drinkwater, approved.
Jamie Meehan, approve.
Jeff Spalter, approve.
Tina Mead, approved.
Joel Ratner, approved.
Tom Garvey is approved.
Mike Waters, yes.
Ron Manderscheid, approved.
Great. Very good. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for the questions. And Jill, thanks to you and your team.